Hi, I'm Phil and welcome to Roll and Play. Today I wanted to take you on a little tour of Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition starter set. So let's roll initiative, take out your spell books and let's see what we have. So I think we come into this with one of two perspectives. You're either an experienced gamer and perhaps you played a lot of Dungeons & Dragons back in 1st edition, perhaps this is a new genre for you, a new world for you to explore, and this is something you want to bring to your players. Or perhaps you're new to the game, you're new to role-playing in fact, maybe you just enjoy board games, and this is a kind of step for you into that world of role-playing, and perhaps you want to dip your toes into the water to see whether or not this is for you. So I think both groups are looking for different things. I think an experienced gamer is probably looking for three things. Thing number one, they're looking for a rich and interesting world to set their game. Is this going to be somewhere that they can paint a set of wonderful adventures for their players? Is it a rich and interesting environment for them to run a game in? And I'd say yes. Dungeons & Dragons, even from way back with the Dragonlance novels through to the computer game franchises, whether it's Baldur's Gate or Neverwinter Nights, have all been wonderful and rich and deep and interesting. Well worth taking into account. I suppose the second thing, and equally interesting, is what the classes are like. So are you going to be able to build interesting and exciting characters and classes for the players to develop and bring to life? Are they going to create legendary heroes in that world? And is this going to be an interesting place for them to explore and role play together? And then finally, I think the third prong is combat and magic woven together. How does that translate? Is it interesting? Is it exciting? Has combat got an element of dynamism to it? Is there something cinematic about the way in which you'll get characters to interact through combat? Certainly magic is something that takes us and differentiates the game from maybe something more historical, something that's maybe based in a kind of medieval or realistic world. So magic's important, and does it take you to that place which is going to be interesting both from a player's perspective and from a dungeon master's perspective. Now if you're new to the game, I think perhaps you're looking for something slightly different. I think perhaps you're looking for a way to immerse yourself in that world, but take the first step. It's got to be simple, easy to get into, it's got to have a real quality look to it and a quality feel to it when you're playing it. And I think it's something that has got to be all contained in one place. So while many of us have hundreds and hundreds of role-playing books and we leaf through those whenever we need to reference the rules, perhaps if you're new to the game, having everything in one tidy box and having it all contained within that one space would be really useful and really helpful. So the starter set does a great job across all those things. First off, it gives you the cut down set of the rules. Now, I have them here. Here are the rules. I have to say, very glossy, very well presented, and actually, both from an experienced player perspective and from a new player, I can see this being really, really interesting. It gives you a couple of examples just to get you started, and that's really useful. It takes you through all the kind of checks you'd need to make, then straight into the meat and potatoes of Dungeons & Dragons. It takes you into combat, explains the kind of order and the way it's laid out, how you would structure it and work it through, the way damage is dealt, some basics around the adventure, which is always useful. Some stuff around inventory, which I guess you've got to cover just for completeness to make sure people understand some of the references to things like armour and weapons and perhaps the classic adventurer tools you might need. And then it touches on spellcasting, the art of magic. And I have to say, giving people just 3 levels of magic actually provides you with just enough to get you interested. This is going to take you on that gentle immersion into the scenario and setting in a nice and simple way without having to run through 200 pages of spells. That's just 30 pages. 30 pages that, if you're very experienced in role-playing, is going to give you some idea of what the 300-page plus bigger books are going to be about, which is always really useful. And secondly, if you're new, that's probably all you need. That's probably all you need to dive in and get going and run your first games. Oh, the character sheets. Now, I am a huge fan of these. Absolutely brilliant. It gives you everything you want with your characters. You could hand these out at the beginning of a session to a group of veterans or people brand new to role-playing, and they would make a good job of this. They would absolutely make a great job of it. It's well laid out, it's well presented, it's got a really nice feel to it as well. And the introduction of personality traits, ideals, bonds and flaws help give that sense of a background, which I think is really useful, especially when you're new to role-playing. So having that contained, and then with the back covering things like race and class and character development as well, you'll be able to see what you look like at 5th level. I know players that will chart their progress through to from 1 to 20 right at the beginning, because it gives them a perspective of where they'll be at what level. But this, just contained in a single place, is brilliant. And last, but by no means least, oh no, we've got dice. It's the standard array of D20, D12, D10, D8, D6, but actually there's something nice about having a set of dice in here. Perhaps you don't have a huge bag full of dice which you've collected over years. Like I say, if you're new to this, these dice might be sitting in the middle of the table for everyone to share. I actually quite like that, and they're decent. The last piece, and perhaps my favourite piece of this, is the adventure. The Lost Mine of Phandelver. Now, I've got to say, I'm going to be running this for my role-playing group here on Roll and Play, and this is pretty special. I've bought pre-packed adventures before. Typically, I've almost always created adventures myself from my warped and twisted memory, and I actually really like this. I like it because it gives people a great introduction to the world. It's really well laid out, and you can tell that people have given some real thought to how they pull this together. There are distinct segments within the story, which is nice. Some useful milestones, which I think are really going to help players. And overall, it's going to give you a wonderful foundation to play from. I can see people using this as a starting point and then taking those 5th or 6th level characters when they're finished and taking them on further adventures, which in itself is incredibly interesting. So check that out, that's fantastic. And you can watch it here on the channel. So if I sum that up, for 20 quid, which is probably what I paid for this here in the UK, what you've got is a whole set of great products with a real quality feel to them that are going to take you on a journey in role-playing. And whether you're new or whether you're very experienced, this is going to be something I think you're really going to enjoy. So, well done, Wizards of the Coast. That's been great. So, that's about it for me. I'll see you real soon, hopefully with some background sessions for the characters that are going to play here in this world. And in the meantime, have a great day.